My question is for Meghan. Meghan, besides holder of briefcase 24 on Deal or No Deal, what do you think your most impactful role was?
Hey, thanks for having us on the show.
It's so awesome to be here. It's great.
I feel like the focus is starting to shift off of me. Maybe in editing you'll fix it.
It's so nice to have you back in London, Meghan. I've missed our little lunches.
We've never had lunch together, Kate.
Well, we must continue the tradition.
South Park has reportedly announced a brand new episode featuring Harry and Meghan, and the timing could not be more brutal. The pair have become a constant source of headlines, controversy, and public debate, giving the show plenty of material to work with.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault. I kind of took you out of your natural habitat. I'm surprised you're still breathing.
And if South Park decides to take another swing at them, you can bet the jokes are going to hit hard. South Park does not usually pick its targets out of nowhere. For decades, Trey Parker and Matt Stone have followed a pretty simple formula. They wait until the gap between a public image and the reality people see becomes impossible to ignore. Then they turn that gap into comedy. They have taken aim at Scientology, Kanye West, Tiger Woods, and plenty of other major names. And Harry and Meghan have already experienced the South Park treatment through the infamous worldwide privacy tour storyline, which sparked a huge reaction when it aired.
Yes, that's right, friend. You see, my wife and I
I was totally like, you should write a book because your family's like stupid and then so are like journalists.
That episode turned their public image, media battles, and demands for privacy into one giant punchline. But that earlier episode landed at a very different moment. Harry and Meghan still had major media deals. Their California lifestyle was still a major part of their public image, and the story around their new life had not become nearly as complicated as it is today. There was still plenty of room for people to argue that the cartoon had pushed things too far. Now, with another episode reportedly on the way, the situation is very different.
You really need to stop thinking in terms of palaces. We have to get jobs. I have to start auditioning again.
Oh yes, you were on the very famous show Suits. More popular in the States than even Friends, you told us.
The public narrative has shifted, the headlines have kept coming, and the jokes practically write themselves. If South Park really goes after the latest chapter of the Harry and Meghan saga, this one could be even more savage than the first. The money, the momentum, and the Hollywood dream all seem a lot less certain now, while Harry and Meghan remain at the centre of a non-stop media storm. And that is exactly why a new South Park episode could land at such a wild moment.
It's been several months now since our beloved queen has died. All Canadians are finding it hard to go on. All Canadians, that is, except for our first guest, the prince and his wife.
After years of public criticism aimed at Britain and the royal family, any storyline about them returning to the country would have plenty of awkward comedy to play with. South Park would not need to invent much. The show has a long history of taking famous people, their biggest public moments and their most memorable statements, then twisting them into outrageous satire. Trey Parker and Matt Stone have repeatedly shown that reality can provide some of the funniest material all by itself.
We want privacy! We want privacy!
That is what makes the potential new episode so interesting. Instead of creating some completely fictional scandal, the writers can look back at interviews, headlines, public appearances, and statements that already happened. Then they can put those moments side by side and let the contradiction become the joke. And there is certainly no shortage of material. Meghan spoke publicly about her experiences inside the royal family, including claims that she faced racism, felt unsafe, and struggled deeply with her mental health.
I'm sorry.
It's not your fault. I kind of took you out of your natural habitat. I'm surprised you're still breathing.
She also described feeling so overwhelmed that she had thoughts of suicide, making clear just how serious her experience had become. Those statements became some of the most discussed moments of the entire royal saga. They sparked fierce arguments on both sides, with supporters saying Meghan had exposed serious problems, while critics questioned parts of her account. For South Park, that clash between competing versions of events is almost perfect comedy material. Now add years of interviews, documentaries, royal drama, and endless headlines to the mix, and the writers have an enormous pile of real-life material to work with.
Hey, thanks for having us on the show.
It's so awesome to be here. It's great.
Whatever direction the episode takes, it could turn some of the biggest moments in the Harry and Meghan story into another unforgettable South Park spectacle. She once spoke as if there was no road back. Britain, she said, had shown her what it was, and she believed she had made her feelings perfectly clear. Yet now, reports about a possible return to Britain have created a completely different picture, with questions about where the family might live and whether the children could spend more time there. That contrast alone is enough to give a satire show plenty to work with. The bigger question is how that change would be presented.
I don't know what to do. How are we going to pay for school for Archie?
I have to tell you, I never realized so many things cost money. Like this chicken. I bet you had to pay for it.
There has been no dramatic public apology or clear admission that earlier comments were wrong. Instead, the story has largely unfolded through media reports, statements, and carefully managed public appearances. That kind of sudden shift can create a very awkward contrast with the image audiences remember. South Park already had a field day with the privacy debate in its first Harry and Meghan storyline. The cartoon exaggerated the couple's public fight for privacy while portraying them surrounded by cameras and attention.
So let me start with you, sir. You've lived a life with the royal family, you've had everything handed to you, but you say your life has been hard, and now you've written all about it in your new book, Where?
It was blunt, ridiculous, and very much in the show's signature style. But a new episode would have something different to play with. A major change in circumstances. The story would no longer simply be about privacy. It could focus on the contrast between what was said years ago and what appears to be happening now. That reversal is comedy gold, because the writers would barely need to exaggerate it, and the reasons behind any potential return could make the story even more interesting.
Sorry, I'm just really stressed. We're completely out of money.
Maybe it's time we dip into your fortune from Suits.
There is no fortune from Suits.
Instead of simply asking why someone would go back, South Park could turn the entire situation into a larger joke about celebrity image, public relations, and changing priorities. The drama is already built in. The show's writers also pay close attention to what dominates public conversation. They watch the stories people argue about, the moments that explode online, and the subjects that keep returning to the headlines. Right now, one especially complicated issue surrounding Harry is his US immigration history. The Heritage Foundation has pursued litigation seeking access to records connected to Harry's immigration documents.
Hi, I'm Meghan Markle,
And I'm Harry. Harry.
and we're royally screwed.
That legal dispute has generated plenty of speculation and debate, but it is important to separate confirmed court developments from claims about what might happen to Harry personally. The legal fight itself, however, gives South Park another very obvious piece of real-world material to turn into satire. The legal dispute over Harry's US immigration records has produced a mountain of paperwork, with reports describing hundreds of documents and thousands of pages connected to his immigration history. And that is where the story gets seriously complicated. At the centre of the debate is something Harry himself discussed in his memoir. He wrote about using cannabis, cocaine, and psychedelic mushrooms at different points in his life.
You gotta be kidding me. I've brought plenty of conflict to the show.
I'm sorry, Meghan. It's just not working out. All you talked about all season was your line of ketchup.
Those admissions have raised questions because US immigration forms can ask applicants about previous drug use depending on the visa and circumstances involved. But here is where the online commentary often jumps way ahead of the confirmed facts. Some critics have argued that Harry must either have lied on an immigration application or received special treatment. However, the public record does not establish which answer is true. And simply admitting past drug use does not automatically prove that someone committed a federal crime or received unlawful preferential treatment.
Yes, that's right, friend. You see, my wife and I are...
Totally like you should write a book because your family like stupid and then so are like journalists.
That distinction matters because immigration law can be complicated, and different applications, waivers, questions, and legal standards can apply depending on the circumstances. The court fight over the records is therefore about finding out what actually happened, not proving a criminal offence before the documents are fully reviewed. The Heritage Foundation has pushed for the release of Harry's immigration records, while the government has fought over what should remain private. The case has attracted plenty of political attention, especially because immigration became such a major issue.
Bravo fired me. Well, not really, but basically, they only offered me friend of the housewives for next season.
But claims that Harry was running from a federal investigation go beyond what has been publicly established. And honestly, South Park would not even need to invent that part. The writers could simply take the bizarre combination of royal drama, American immigration paperwork, celebrity status, and political controversy and turn it into a ridiculous storyline. The contrast practically writes itself. A British prince caught in a dispute over US immigration records, while the public debates whether his famous memoir created the problem in the first place.
So you hate journalists? That's right. And now you wrote a book that reports on the lives of the royal family. Right. So you're a journalist.
That is exactly the kind of absurd real-world setup South Park loves to exaggerate. 2 years ago, South Park imagined Harry and Meghan riding a public bus after their television plans supposedly fell apart, with Meghan telling Harry she needed to start auditioning again while he stood there looking completely lost. At the time, it was easy to laugh and call it an outrageous cartoon exaggeration. But now...
Do you have any cash for a cab? Oh, look, Grandma's on the money. I never noticed that before.
the joke hits differently. The real-world legal drama has become far more complicated. In the Daily Mail-related case, a judge criticised aspects of the claimant's conduct in unusually strong terms and ordered a substantial payment toward legal costs. Reports put the immediate figure at around £9.5 million, while the overall cost could potentially climb much higher depending on the final outcome. That is a brutal financial situation for anyone.
She hates delete.
You need to knock it off, and you're hitting everyone with that table.
And the courtroom drama became even more uncomfortable when testimony from a key witness was challenged and parts of the evidence became the subject of intense scrutiny during the proceedings. So instead of simply being a celebrity lawsuit that attracted headlines, the case turned into a serious legal and financial headache. Reports also suggested that Harry contacted other claimants about the growing costs and whether expenses could be shared. Those discussions apparently did not lead to the solution he wanted.
And please stop sending me samples.
I hear you, Andy. I'll amp it up. I'll smash a wine glass. I'll tell Kyle she has Munchausen syndrome. I'll accuse Dorit of doing coke.
Insurance was reported to cover part of the immediate bill, but questions remained about who would be responsible for additional costs. And that distinction is important, because the exact amount any individual claimant ultimately pays depends on the court's orders, agreements, and insurance arrangements. Now imagine South Park's writers getting their hands on all of that material.
We just want to be normal people. All this attention is so hard. Isn't it true, sir, that your questionable wife has her own TV show and hangs out with celebrities and does fashion magazines?
They already joked about Meghan doing a sponsored social media post while Harry wandered around their enormous home with seemingly nothing productive to do. That was satire turned up to 11! Add a huge legal bill, courtroom arguments, celebrity lawsuits, and the endless pressure of maintaining a public image, and suddenly the writers have an entire new batch of material. They would not even need to create an outrageous fictional crisis. The real-life legal drama is already bizarre enough to become a South Park storyline. The real-world story is already packed with material.
And you know what else? To hell with Canada! We are leaving! We'll go find some quiet place where we can be normal people! Come on, wife!
A major legal cost dispute, ongoing questions about Harry's immigration records, uncertainty around his professional plans, and a lifestyle brand built around products like jam and candles. Whether every online claim about their finances or careers is accurate is another question entirely, but the public image has certainly given comedians plenty to play with. For a South Park writer's room,
We can be the people we talked about being, with no more worries about how we look or the image we project to people. What matters is what we have on the inside.
that kind of chaos is practically a gift. The show has already mocked the couple's privacy battles, their branding efforts, and the strange contrast between wanting a quiet life while remaining heavily involved in interviews, documentaries, and public announcements. But there is another angle that could make the satire even sharper: comparison. That does not require turning Catherine into a perfect hero or Meghan into a cartoon villain.
Who's that?
That's your nephew, Archie.
You're pulling my leg. Why have we not met before?
You've met him like 1,000 times.
It is simply a contrast between two women who became part of the same royal institution and faced enormous public attention in very different ways. Catherine has spent years dealing with intense media scrutiny, public expectations, and constant attention surrounding her family. Her response has generally been more private and restrained, particularly during periods when her health became a major public concern. Her cancer diagnosis brought an enormous wave of sympathy, with many people expressing genuine concern for her and her children. Her return to public life was also widely covered, and supporters praised the way she handled a deeply personal health crisis while keeping much of the focus on her family.
So all you'd have to do is Instagram yourselves using my ketchup. It'd be a huge help.
I see. Well, that's something we'll definitely think about.
That created a very different public image from the one surrounding Harry and Meghan's highly publicised departure from royal duties. And that is where South Park could find its strongest joke. The comedy would not have to come from simply attacking one person. It could come from putting two very different approaches to royal life side by side and letting the contrast speak for itself. If the new episode really explores that comparison, it could be far more pointed than the earlier privacy jokes. One side represents restraint and careful public appearances, while the other has built a much more media-focused story around life outside the royal family. For a show like South Park, that contrast is almost too easy to resist. They would not even need to directly attack Catherine.
Well, it's an apartment, so...
Yes, an apartment palace, I know that. Lots of tiny palaces inside one big palace.
The joke could simply come from showing her handling the royal spotlight with calm restraint, while the cartoon version of Meghan arrives in Britain, surrounded by publicity, business plans, and a suspiciously mysterious career project nobody can quite explain. That contrast would practically write the punchline itself. There is also another moment that could become instant comedy if Harry and Meghan appear at the same royal events as other members of the family. If Meghan and Catherine end up in the same room, every tiny detail will be watched, analysed, and debated online. A greeting, a handshake, even a curtsy could become a full-blown media storm. South Park would not have to invent much. The cameras and social media would do most of the work first, while the writers simply exaggerate whatever awkward moment gets the biggest reaction.
Thanks. Okay, see you later. Oh, would you pick up some milk?
That is one of the show's favourite tricks. Take something people are already obsessing over and push it completely over the edge. The first episode portrayed Harry as a confused figure following Meghan around, repeating her talking points and appearing unsure of his own direction. It was exaggerated, obviously, but viewers recognised the broader joke because Harry and Meghan had spent years presenting a highly coordinated public story. This time, however, the writers have another major character available, William. And South Park has always been good at identifying contrasts within a story. One person stays controlled while another creates chaos. One says almost nothing while everyone else talks non-stop. That difference can become the entire joke. William has faced enormous attention surrounding his family and his father's health, yet he has generally avoided turning those private pressures into a public spectacle. If reports about the family's reaction to Harry and Meghan's return are accurate, his silence could actually be more powerful than any angry statement. No dramatic interview, no explosive soundbite, no emotional performance for the cameras, just silence. And for a comedy show, that creates a very funny setup. While everyone else is talking, speculating, arguing, and trying to explain the latest development, William could simply stand there looking completely unimpressed. South Park would not need him to say much at all.
Why did you bring that with you again, Harry?
You know, in case someone wants a massage, I'll do a few outcalls.
Back in January, reports said William quietly added a senior crisis management figure to his team, well before the latest family developments became public. If that reporting is accurate, it suggests he was preparing for another difficult period without turning the preparation into a public spectacle. No dramatic announcement, no public warning. Just quiet planning behind the scenes. South Park already knows how to use that kind of contrast. Its earlier portrayal of William presented him as the controlled figure watching the chaos from a distance, while Harry appeared to stumble from one controversy to the next. If the writers revisit that dynamic, they have an even bigger gap to work with now. And there is one detail that practically begs for a joke. William has a very different future waiting for him. As heir to the throne, his position is tied to a long-term path that Harry simply does not share. That makes the brothers' situations dramatically different, especially when questions about titles, royal status, and family relationships keep appearing in the headlines. That is where South Park could really turn up the absurdity. A cartoon Harry could be desperately trying to protect his place in the royal story, while William barely has to say a word. The contrast between someone fighting to remain connected and someone whose position is already secure is exactly the sort of ridiculous setup the show loves. But the biggest comedy angle is the public contradiction surrounding the reported return to Britain. Meghan has previously spoken very critically about her experiences there, including describing the environment as unsafe and deeply damaging to her mental health. Now, reports of spending more time in Britain naturally invite questions about how those earlier statements fit with the new circumstances. The same goes for privacy. Harry and Meghan have repeatedly spoken about wanting greater control over their personal lives, yet their story has also involved interviews, documentaries, books, public statements, and carefully managed media coverage. That tension has been a major part of the public debate for years. If reports about the latest move and the timing of media briefings are accurate, South Park would have another obvious contradiction to exaggerate. It would not need to invent a scandal. It could simply take the competing public narratives, put them next to each other, and let the awkwardness do the heavy lifting. She has spoken about giving up her acting career for love, while her time on Suits had already been winding down before she met Harry. Now, speculation about a possible acting project connected to her return has created plenty of online chatter, but no specific project has been publicly confirmed. And that uncertainty alone gives comedians plenty of room to have fun. Her Netflix lifestyle series was also promoted as an important step in building her identity beyond the royal family. The reception, however, was heavily debated, with questions about viewership, promotion, and whether the project made the cultural impact supporters expected. That gap between huge expectations and a more complicated reality is classic South Park territory. Then there is the lifestyle brand. Meghan has launched products including preserves, candles, and decorative food toppings, with the business attracting both loyal supporters and plenty of criticism. Whether the brand succeeds long-term is still an open question. But the internet has certainly had no shortage of jokes about it. And that is the beauty of satire. South Park would not need to invent some wild new scandal. The writers could take public interviews, promotional material, headlines, and business announcements, then place those moments beside what happened afterward. Sometimes reality already contains the punchline. The public reaction to a potential return has also been fiercely divided. Online polls and social media reactions have produced dramatic numbers, but those results can vary depending on who was surveyed, how the question was asked, and who participated. Treating one poll as proof of what an entire country thinks would be a stretch. Still, there is no question that some British commentators have predicted a hostile reception. Former newspaper editor Kelvin Mackenzie has reportedly said, "Meghan will be booed when she appears in public." That is a strong prediction. But whether it actually happens is something only the crowds can decide. And that gives South Park another hilarious setup. Imagine the cartoon version of Meghan arriving in Britain expecting a grand reception, only to discover that the welcome is far more complicated than she imagined. The writers could turn every awkward wave, confused smile, and uncomfortable silence into a full-blown comedy scene. And if Harry and Meghan do spend more time in Britain, they will be walking into a country where public opinion is anything but simple. Many people supported the royal family through difficult moments, while others strongly criticised Harry and Meghan's decisions. That history is not something a new business, a television project, or a carefully planned public appearance can simply erase overnight. And that is exactly where South Park could find its biggest laugh. The show could take the years of interviews, headlines, public arguments, and competing versions of the story and turn them into one giant, absurd reunion. No complicated setup needed. Just the characters arriving back in Britain, and discovering that the past has not magically disappeared. There is also an important reality check here. Claims that South Park has never faced any legal challenge, or that every joke is completely untouchable, are too absolute. The show has faced controversy and legal disputes over the years, even though satire and parody receive strong protections in the United States. So if this new episode happens, the legal drama could be just as interesting as the comedy. And Meghan cannot simply control what a satire show decides to joke about. Publicists can respond, critics can complain, and supporters can defend her, but none of that guarantees the controversy will disappear. In fact, the louder the argument becomes, the more attention the episode could attract. That is what makes this whole situation so entertaining to watch. The episode has not even aired yet, and the real-world drama is already creating headlines. If South Park goes after the return, the jokes could spread across social media before viewers even see the full episode. So what do you think? Would a new South Park episode about Harry and Meghan actually go too far? Or would it be the perfect target for the show's style of satire? Drop your opinion in the comments, because this one could spark a serious debate. And if you enjoyed the breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next update.